Hi, this is Patsy with a Z. Welcome to Joy on Paper Live, a program for writers and those who dream of writing, and for everyone who wants to know the story behind the book. And I am so happy to welcome Jennifer Lang because she has a book. And I don't know. I always thought of yogis as really skinny little guys sitting on a stone. And here we have beautiful Jennifer Lang to tell us about the life of a yogi and many other things. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Patsy. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's nice to talk to you. And you have to explain this book. There's so many fun parts to it. I love the way that you write. I love the way that you put things together. And I remember with your other memoir, Places We Left Behind. I just love the layout. You're very clever. You have a absolutely wonderful talent for putting words on paper, and literally words on paper in different locations sometimes. And it's just fun. So tell us about yourself, Jennifer.
I am born in the San Francisco Bay Area in Berkeley, California, and I grew up really rooted. American parents, Californian parents, monolingual household, really clear cut. Thought I'd always live in California, and I didn't end up living in California. And I am an immigrant in Israel. I live in the heart of Tel Aviv. And when we arrived in Israel in 2011, I had a hard time. It was our third time living there. And I had a hard time, but I knew I needed to make peace with the place and find home. And this book landed, A Yogi's Memoir in Pieces and Poses. It's a 7-year search on and off a yoga mat, looking for answers to hard questions about my mathematician. And that really made me laugh because I basically flunked out of geometry. So, if anything, it's algebra. I had a huge crush on my algebra teacher in 11th grade. So, yes, maybe it's algebraic, but really, I'm not an artist and I'm not a mathematician, but it's funky on the page. There's a strong visual element.
It is. It's really wonderful. I love the way you do this. It makes it so intriguing. And this entire story of yoga. Now, I was never into yoga. I was a kickboxer. I was more martial arts, and for many years, I trained at 5 o'clock in the morning kickboxing. So this is long before it became a popular sport here in America. So I was doing that for many years. I guess I was never calm. I never, I probably this is what I need. Need a little inspiration to get a little bit calmer. And definitely, I guess yoga brings you to that point where you start. My mind is always going so fast. But tell us about what it means. Were you doing yoga when you were in America? When did this whole thing come to you?
So, I first stepped on a yoga mat in 1995. I was just 30 years old, mother of a toddler, married to a Frenchman, and we had moved. We had met and married and had our son in Israel. And after 5 years, we went to Paris, and then for Paris for my husband for an MBA. And then from Paris, we went to California to find jobs and to live near my parents. And I had grown up rooted only to feel really uprooted. I'd already had a bout of living abroad, studied French all my life, and lived and worked in Paris after college, like a dream come true situation. From Paris, I went to Israel. That's where I met my husband. So I grew up rooted. I ended up unrooted. And then we raised kids in an uprooted way where we just kept yanking them and moving them. And when I stepped on that yoga mat, my first teacher and almost every teacher that followed, by the way, his name was Rodney Yee, very famous. They used this language that made me weep. Anchor your feet into the floor, feel the ground underneath you, root down, plant roots. And I would get teary in class feeling like, are you just speaking to me? Is this because of where I've been and how I feel so unrooted? How I have uprooted myself time and time again? So it wasn't the poses, it wasn't the breathing work, it wasn't anything other than the language. And I guess that makes sense because I'm a writer, or I ended up a writer. So the fact that it's the language of yoga that lured me in and I'm a writer, that works for me.
It certainly works for the book. So as I said, I was never. It's probably still not. I don't have this calmness that I see with people who do yoga, and I like that, and probably should channel it. When you first started, it right away, this feeling came to you? How and now
No,
that you
but I have a background. So you have kickboxing. My background was in modern dance and aerobics. So yoga is still like similar on a mat and in a room with a mirror, though in yoga there are no mirrors. So yoga wasn't so far from the things that I had done and loved. That said, I did not have a love affair with the poses for a long time. I would sometimes think, why are we doing this? Or it's weird. Lift your toes, spread your feet, spread your toes. My toes were all gnarled together. I had a hammer toe on each side. I sometimes just thought, this is weird. I would think of the teacher, you're weird. You sound goofy. But those feelings went away quite quickly. It became my quiet place from home where I had one kid, then two kids, then three kids, and chaos and yearning for control and not having control. And it's in doing these interviews and having these conversations that I only look back now and say, and this is almost 30 years later, I look back now and say, yoga gave me the boundary. Stepping onto that rectangular mat gave me the boundary to contain the chaos. The chaos of being a young parent, the chaos of moving from country to country, the chaos of being in a not easy marriage, a marriage that had some hard issues from the get-go. Love, but hard issues. I think that mat became this metaphor for me, but I didn't understand that until now, for boundaries, barrier, chaos control.
I think it's something that people are intrigued about. Now, of course, it's popular in health clubs. They'll do 10 minutes of yoga, or they'll have Friday mornings are yoga mornings. I belonged once to a health club, and I couldn't stand it. I went back to my kickboxing because I somehow, when I put on those gloves, I really feel good. But it's not a 10-minute thing that you can do like Friday mornings, and it's something that you really have to put time into.
Yeah, I agree. And I've never been to a 10-minute yoga class. 20 minutes maybe, but it takes me 20 to just warm up and to feel like I can move my body, at least at this age.
We should have had you actually. You should be in your yoga clothes and show us some of the poses. I never understood it. Each one means something. How exactly does it work?
Yeah, you could say each one means something. And we don't all have a great relationship with, or an equal same relationship to every pose. So there are some poses I love and that really work for my body, and some poses I loathe that are anything that has to do with the hips, because I'm really tight in my hips. I struggle with, but every yoga teacher will say the same thing. The poses that are hard are the ones your body needs the most. Maybe, maybe. And just like I could say to you, Patsy, your struggle because you want to be kicking and boxing because you feel like you don't know how to quiet, that means you probably should try yoga, right? To try and bring that quiet, force that quiet. But I'm not a yoga pusher. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone.
It probably would help in this day and age. We all need more calming. Now, of course, my calming has been actually a hammock and a book.
Sounds lovely.
That's my idea of but actually yoga, in addition, and you mentioned your hips, but in addition to giving you a calm time, I don't know if you're thinking so much as you're just calming yourself, but also physically it's good.
Yeah, so that's what I want to say. It all depends on the teacher and the style. People don't realize when they go to a class that there's different styles. And so you can go to a class where I say you barely move and you're really just breathing. And then you can go to a class like what I used to do with what I call kick ass practices, where we're doing handstand, we're doing headstand, we're doing back bends. And I never, like in my 30s into my 40s, I had never thought of myself as strong. And on the yoga mat, I became strong. And that is also really empowering. So I think of myself today as strong. I'm 5'1". I was always the last one picked in PE to be on someone's team because I was scared of the ball or just a wimp, basically. And yoga, being on that mat, wow. I have some poses that just take me off the ground and make me feel light on the one hand and strong on the other. So there's something very magical about it. But the other magic that happens is in doing a practice that's well done with a good teacher, guided well, that includes breath work and reminders about how to, whatever, hold in your abdomen or how to breathe. There is the thinking going on, because I think as the endorphins release, there's thinking and clarity that happens. But then there is this incredible quieting, and it is grounding, and you can walk out feeling just totally clear headed. And that's a gift.
Nowadays, when the world feels upside down, it might be a good idea to stand on your head.
So if you see the cover of my book, it's handstand.
Uh-huh.
I didn't design it. The publisher designed it, but it's handstand, which is really one of my, if not my favorite pose, one of my favorite poses. And yeah, it's that feeling of everything's upside down. So what it is, the book is told in present tense, yoga poses, and past. So I call it present, past, and poses. I'm telling a 7-year story from 2011 to 2018 through stories, vignettes. I call them chapterettes. I want people to try and understand this very misunderstood country of Israel and the life that I was living for the first time, voting for the first time, taking care of some bureaucracy where I had what do we call it, a bureaucrat? Like the person working there who was such a human being and helped us when the office was closed and we went in at the wrong time. And first she barked at us, we're closed. And then she turned around and helped us because we needed to get something urgently. The humanity. I'm trying to show the humanity, my own humanity in my marriage, in myself, in my family, and the humanity around me. I tell the story of one of my very memorable Arab Muslim yoga students, the only Muslim in the room of mostly Jews, and the courage that it took for her to come and what it meant for me. My then 12-year-old daughter being in a Friday morning program on the day off of school with English speaking Israeli Jews and Arab Muslims from a nearby village town where they got together every Friday for 1 year to do different activities and to learn about each other. So I tell all kinds of stories. My son going into the army, my son getting out, my daughter going into the army, my daughter getting out. And through all of that, yoga class is happening. I'm either a teacher or I'm a student or some kind of yogic encounter. And each time that yoga is reminding me to stay grounded and to not push away and deny, but to deal with the not always stable situation around me, whether it's my own personal turmoil or the turmoil of the country that I'm living in.
What were some of the funny things you discovered living in Israel? Because I think I can relate to some of them, I'm sure.
Funny. Okay, so I'm not prepared for that question. The voting, the political system. I would never be able to tell anyone about the political system in Israel. It confounds me. The last time I voted, there were 34 options. And then the party that I was voting for at the time, which was called Yesh Atid, there is a future. Okay, here's a funny story. So it's a country where it's called the Startup Nation, where you have more startups per capita, I think, than any other country in the world. And yet the voting is the most elementary, basic, rudimentary system with an envelope that you have to lick the seal and papers that you take from a hook, and they're hanging on this triptych, and there's 30 something of them, and they're overwhelming, and it's all these acronyms. And you would think that Yesh Atid, the party I was voting for at the time, this was years ago, it would have been a Y for Yesh and A for Atid, but I couldn't find the letters. I barely know the alphabet, and I couldn't find the letters in Hebrew, and I had to call someone for help. So someone came over and then shows me the acronym. I can't ever remember what the acronym was, but it had nothing to do with the sound of the words Yesh Atid. And I left laughing. You've got to be kidding me. And I had to seal my envelope. When's the last time you licked an envelope? I don't know if you think that's funny, but like
I
that.
think it's funny. I think it's
Yeah.
funny. I also think of standing in line in Israel for a bus, and then everybody rushes past you. You could be the first in line, but I don't know, that last person in line always got on before you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just
There is something to that. Sadly,
yeah,
that hasn't changed so much. Yeah.
and it's not that they were being rude. The last person in line can manage to somehow get it through everybody else.
Yeah. The manners have changed. I think there's more manners today. I think, you know, no one will ever say to you in a store, have you found everything you're looking for? Hi, can I help you? Have you found what you're looking for? That is not part of the culture. But there's definitely a thank you at the end. When you're tipping at the restaurant, you do it. If you're giving a credit card, you have to say the tip, the amount of tip you want to leave before they take the credit card. And there's always an acknowledgement, a thank you from the server. And that's nice.
Yeah.
It's different than the anonymity in the States.
What else? You mentioned your marriage, and your husband is French. And
Yeah.
so that has its own complexity too.
I call us a mixed marriage. So we're bicultural. We raised our children speaking French and English because I speak French also. And I call it interdenominational. We're both Jewish, but he's an observant Jew who grew up keeping kosher, who grew up celebrating the Sabbath, though not completely, not the way he does now. He does more than the way he grew up. I grew up Reformed, Northern California, eating pork and shrimp and cheeseburgers. Not really a notion of keeping kosher. Not sure I knew how much what that meant. Definitely Shabbat for me was only Friday night. Occasionally my grandparents coming over and bringing steak and my dad barbecuing the steak, and then maybe my grandfather and my dad would say the prayers over the wine and challah or bread, but not routinely. So we came from two very different Jewish backgrounds, and we've been negotiating ever since. It's been 35 years.
Well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it takes some work. And this book is mostly about a 7 year period. I love, you're very clever with words. I love this chapterettes. That's the first time I've heard anybody use that. And I like that.
I didn't come up with that. I got to give credit where credit is due. I was in conversation at Zibby's bookshop in Santa Monica last February, and my partner in conversation, Blair Glazer, called them chapterettes. And so I said to her, can I lift that? And I've lifted it.
It now belongs to you. It's great. Really, it's great. I'm going to steal it now because I just but I will give you acknowledgement because I think it's really clever. I what I like about your writing, and partly it is just seeing the pages and how they flow, but there's something about it. You read a few pages, you go into the book, and then after a little while, you want to go back and say, "Did she write that like that?" And your writing it's fresh. It's nothing stayed about it. You feel like it's just popped into your mind at that exact moment, and it was perfect, and you don't have to fool around with it. I don't know if that's actually what happens. You probably have to go back.
Pretty hard at it.
That's what I was going to say. But that's always in any art. When something looks really easy, it looks like almost you say, why are those squares on the canvas? And you think, that's really easy. But then it takes time for you to realize, yeah, but everything just works. So it's the same with your writing and with your books, because there's something, it's visual as well as the words and everything else, the stories that you tell.
There's influences in one's life, and I would say that I've been on a journey, and it's been a kind of a twofold journey. And one is moving away from traditional prose, like long form and kind of always using the same vocabulary in the way that I always wear the same clothes, and compressing and condensing, and you can call it flash nonfiction, but not technically, because each of these chapters or chapterettes, for it to be called a memoir in flash, each of the chapterettes would have to stand alone, which they don't. They're part of a narrative, but it is compressed prose. And when I started to compress my prose, I found that I understood what I was writing about in a way that for years I'd been in a writing group, and I would bring my story to the table with 7 other nonfiction writers and say, I know I have a story here, but I don't know what I'm trying to say. And that would happen to me. That happened for years until I started to compress. And once I went down into 300 word, 400 word, 500 word, whatever it is, 700 words, I understood the point of what I was saying, the heart of the story. So that happened. But at the same time, I was reading books. So one is an author who's no longer alive, Amy Krauss Rosenthal, who had a column in Modern Love that went viral years ago, like 7 years ago, maybe, called You May Want to Marry My Husband. And it was beautiful writing. Like, it slayed you. And I went to look up who she was because I understood she had died, I think, just before the column went live, I think. And so she was a woman around my age with 3 kids living in Chicago and a writer of children's books. And she had written a book, a memoir called Encyclopedia of an Ordinary Life. I ordered it. It's not that the story is so engaging, but the way she told the story, the visual on the page, the thinking outside the box really wowed me. And then at the same time, around the same time, I heard an illustrator named Nora Krug, a German living in New York, married to an American, speak on her then new illustrated memoir, a term I'd never heard before, called Belonging. And I bought the book, and it's like each page is different, and it's as if you're holding a book that is just for you, that no one else has this book. And so these books have had a huge influence on me, this feeling of, I want to do something unique. I want to break away from the mold. I'm not an artist. I'm not an illustrator. I don't know how to do what Nora Krug did, but I want to create something that no one else has done. Just, it's like an urge. And when I started doing what I did to the prose, I realized for me right now, there's no going back. It is so fun to push the boundaries on the page. And it goes with my age, like with menopause and being in your 50s and just wanting to say, leave me alone, which is a big theme in my book. Let me be me. Let me do this my way. So it kind of mirrors that coming of age. I call this a late coming of age, really.
I think that this is what we need. I think sometimes we get so bogged down in books that really don't grab us or really don't take us to that place that we need to be. But your books, both of the books, they have this, they capture a moment in time. It's like each page captures a moment in time, and you bring that moment to life with your words. It's really beautifully done.
Thank you, Patsy.
Yeah, this is great. This is just fun writing. I think it's what you touch so many subjects, as you said. And whether it's getting older or menopause or whatever, you do everything with there is a sense of humor behind everything and things in a interesting way. That's for sure.
Thank you.
You work with other writers now, and you're enjoying that.
I founded Israel Writer Studio in 2015, and I teach ongoing writing classes. I'm trying to create community in a country that is not an English speaking country. So I'm trying to create community around being an English language writer. And I definitely work with people one on one, though not now because I'm really busy with book promotion. And also, I'm not really writing so much now because I'm really busy with book promotion. But I will get back to it. I will get back to all of it. It will happen.
I think you're terrific. I love the books, and I hope that people will get them. They're exactly the kind of book, if people are looking for a book to actually give as a gift, I think because you touch, there's a gentleness to your books, and that probably comes maybe from the yoga, your breathing. It's almost there's almost an element of breathing in your books, like
Wow.
you have sort of passages where you're rushing a little bit ahead, and then it's like pulling back. You just the way you place words on a page is okay. Let's breathe.
You. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. No one's ever said that before. That's beautiful.
You want people to come away from your books feeling a little bit different from what they would normally come away from a book. With your books, there's that visual impact too, I think.
Thank you. I need more readers like you.
That's what we have to get for you. We have to get more readers for you because I just admire anyone who comes out with something original and something that's new, and I think uplifting too. I hope that you'll have fun promoting the book and getting out there and meeting people. That's important. Still, even with all the internet and everything else, so much book selling comes from human connections.
Absolutely.
You're on the west coast of the United States, and you're doing events now to promote the book.
And so from here, my last event in San Francisco is Sunday morning at a synagogue called Beth Shalom. It's actually where my grandparents founded it and where my dad and my aunt grew up. And I'm doing a presentation actually about my roots. I have pretty interesting roots, I have to say. And from San Francisco, I go to Chicago. I have 2 book events, one at a bookstore in Highland Park and one in a synagogue. And then from Chicago to Philadelphia, I have an event. Philadelphia to Westchester, New York, to West Hartford, Connecticut, and then I'm done.
At any of these events, do you stand on your head?
No, I'm not in yoga clothes.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Next time you come here, maybe you have your yoga clothes on and you can do a headstand for us, okay?
No, but actually, I teach yoga pros. And so I just did a workshop last week for the 92nd Street Y on Zoom, which is using your yoga practice to access your story. So, yes, I do combine the two in this way.
Okay. No, but I'm going to insist. Next time you're going to come, you can. I absolutely.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind. Even though I can't do headstand anymore because my neck. I prefer handstand.
Okay, you'll do a handstand. That'll be fantastic.
That's
Okay.
the deal. Yes.
Again, it's just wonderful to talk to you. And it's Jennifer Lang. Let's go and let's look at your website just so people can find it. It's israelwriterstudio.com.
Yep.
And they can go there. They can find out more about you. They can find out about your other book and all of the work that you're doing to help promote understanding among people, which is so important, and getting people together. And again, Jennifer, it's just been a joy to talk to you.
Thank you, Patsy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. You're fantastic. And the book is fantastic. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye. It was fun to talk to Jessica Lang about her book, Landed, a memoir in pieces and poses. The way she writes is very intriguing, and if you're interested in memoirs and perhaps writing your own memoir, I suggest you get this book, and it might inspire you to take up yoga, because we all need to be calmer. Please subscribe to Joy on Paper Live, comment, and share. Thank you for joining me today. Bye.